When tensions in the Middle East reach this kind of level, the consequences rarely stay contained. You see, Iran's supreme leader is dead, and the Middle East is now in this direct, open confrontation. The Ayatollah Ali Khamenei was killed in an Israeli airstrike backed by the US that hit his compound in central Tehran on Saturday morning. Now, the Iranian state media confirmed his death hours after Washington and Tel Aviv announced this major operation targeting Iran's nuclear and missile infrastructure. Now, there's a lot more history and diplomacy behind this, but essentially it boiled down to a nuclear standoff that collapsed. You see, negotiations broke down after the US argued that Iran refused to curb its uranium enrichment, which is basically the key process that could move a nuclear program close to weapons capability, while Iran insisted that this program was peaceful. And so this past weekend, that diplomatic failure turned into military action. Now, Iran responded fast. Waves of missiles and drones were launched at both Israel and US bases across the Gulf. Now, some of those strikes spilled beyond their primary targets, with damage reported at Dubai International Airport and near the Burj Al Arab. And so as a result, major Middle Eastern airspace has since been shut down, grounding flights across these key major travel hubs. Iran also threatened the Strait of Hormuz, a route that carries roughly 20% of the global oil supply. Now, for South Africans, this isn't some distant drama. You see, oil prices move on headlines like these. Shipping routes through the region matters. And so whenever the US and Iran exchange fire directly, global markets start pricing in the risk of something spiraling beyond anyone's control. And so that kind of uncertainty can ripple into the rand, our fuel costs, and the broader economy. South Africa just mapped out how it plans to spend your money in 2026. Now, that's what our budget speech really is. It's a blueprint for what gets funded, what gets squeezed, and how much room the country actually has. And whether you watch the speech or not, it affects two real parts of your life: your cost of living and the quality of the services that you rely on. So on paper, government isn't pulling back. You see, it wants to keep paying out social grants. It's still backing salary increases for teachers, nurses, police officers, or the public servants who keep our state running. Furthermore, it's pressing ahead with big infrastructure plans, from fixing electricity to upgrading rail and transport. In other words, the machine keeps moving. The catch, though, is that all of that spending still has to be paid for, and there's no sudden surge of new money flowing in. So instead of hiking up VAT or introducing some brand new tax, government is filling the gap in a lot of little ways. For example, fuel is becoming a little bit more expensive through higher levies, alcohol and tobacco duties creep up again, environmental taxes inch forward, and SARS is expecting to tighten up on collections. Now, at the same time, one of the biggest costs in the entire budget is interest on government debt, which is essentially money that goes towards paying back past loans before it ever reaches public schools, hospitals, or policing. And so that's the squeeze here: small increases on our side, fixed bills on theirs. So what happens next really comes down to whether the economy grows. You see, the plan assumes that businesses earn more, people earn more, and that tax revenue keeps coming in. And if that happens, the pressure stays manageable. But if it doesn't, the numbers tighten and government has fewer options. And so when you hear about growth or tax collection in the months ahead, that's not economic jargon. It's a real indicator of how stretched or stable your financial environment in this country is likely to feel. Now, what government spends is one story, but what the underlying numbers signal about South Africa's financial position is another. For years, South Africa's budget speech has been rather depressing. Debt climbing, tax brackets frozen, emergency plans to plug holes. This time, though, it was a little different. For starters, debt is projected to stabilize as a share of the economy for the first time since 2008. The 20 billion rand in tax hikes that were on the table last year, scrapped because revenue actually came in stronger than expected. And hey, after 2 years of people paying more tax simply because their incomes rose with inflation, income tax brackets have finally been adjusted. And so look, it's not fireworks, but it's certainly movement in the right direction. Now, there are other small but meaningful signals. For instance, South Africa has been removed from the FATF grey list and has secured its first credit rating upgrade in 16 years, which essentially helps to lower borrowing costs over time. The VAT threshold for small businesses has been lifted, making life easier for small operators. Tax-free savings and retirement contribution limits have been increased, helping to nudge people to build their own financial buffers. And hey, government even admitted that the current skill levies program isn't working as it should, which in budget terms is unusually honest. But let's make one thing clear. This isn't an economic boom. Growth is still projected at just 1.6%. Debt is still sky high. Interest payments are still massive. And so what we're seeing here isn't prosperity. If anything, it's stabilization. You see, the numbers look less fragile than they did a few years ago, and that matters. But as we said earlier, this whole thing still hinges on growth. If the economy picks up, this becomes sustainable. But if it doesn't, we're back in squeeze mode. And before we cruise on to our bagel bite of the day, here's a couple other headlines worth knowing. For starters, the South African Institute of Chartered Accountants says that 61% of candidates passed the final board exam in December, down from 73% last year. Now, most of this group started university in 2020, meaning that their foundational years were shaped by lockdowns and remote learning. The Gautrain's current operator will stay on for another 6 months after delays in appointing a new long-term partner. Now, the preferred bidder has been selected but not named, with the extension aimed at avoiding disruption when the existing contract expires in March. And SARS says that it needs more forensic investigators, data scientists, and transfer pricing specialists to tighten compliance, particularly among wealthy taxpayers. Now, with no new taxes in the latest budget, the pressure now shifts to enforcement to help to close the country's estimated tax gap. And on to our bagel bite of the day. But first, just a side note, if you are enjoying the show, please can I ask that you like and subscribe. It goes a long way. And now, with that out the way, let's see what you got. The question is, which country has the world's largest sovereign wealth fund? Is it A, Saudi Arabia, B, Norway, or C, Azerbaijan? We'll give you the answer at the end of the show. If you had to guess which country's citizens live the longest, which do you think it would be? Now, many of you would probably think Japan, and you wouldn't be wrong to put it near the top. You see, Japan's average life expectancy sits in the mid-80s, driven by universal healthcare, low obesity rates, and a culture that prioritizes routine and diet. Think smaller portions, lots of fish, and cities designed for walking. You might also throw in Switzerland, clean air, strong public services, and one of the highest GDPs per capita in the world. Or hey, even Singapore, where tight urban planning, efficient healthcare, and strong public health policy have helped to push life expectancy into the mid-80s as well. And so hey, different continents, same pattern. We've got strong institutions, high income, and long lives. So who's at the top of the list? It's not Italy, but rather Monaco. Population about 40,000, average life expectancy roughly 87 years old, the highest in the world. It's ultra wealthy, low crime, and medically world class. In Monaco, the wealth is health isn't a slogan, it's a statistic. But it's also a reminder that Monaco isn't a blueprint, it's a microstate built on extreme concentration of money and stability. And as for that bagel bite, the answer is Norway. Not Azerbaijan, not Saudi, but rather a country of 5 million that turned oil revenue into the world's largest investment fund. They don't spend the oil money, they invest it, and only a small slice can be used each year. And so yeah, oil created the wealth, but discipline protected it. And my friends, that's it for today's show. Thanks so much for tuning in. Hope you guys all had a cracker weekend. Wishing you a fantastic Monday ahead. Remember, be kind to one another, and we'll catch you all tomorrow for the next round of the good stuff. God bless.